Niebuhr. I'm the founder of the Young Africa Vision. Welcome to this episode of Young Africa Today. In today's episode, I'm very happy to introduce you to Carel Snyman. Carel is a guy that I've known for a number of years. In fact, we started talking about working together on a number of interesting projects over time, and I asked Carel to share some of the very interesting things that he's working on and that he has worked on his life with you. I hope you enjoy this interview. Welcome to this episode of Young Africa Today, Carel. I am very happy that you are making time to see me and to speak to our viewers today. I'm just going to ask you to start by introducing yourself and just giving a little bit of background about Carel Snyman.
Thank you, Reinhild. It's a pleasure to be on your show. Well, I don't know how far back you want to go. I've been involved in these.
I don't know how far back you want to go because I've been involved in these things for quite a number of decades. It's about 33 to 35 years that I've been involved in energy. I started off at the National Energy Council, where I was responsible for alternative energy sources in South Africa, looking at everything other than petrol and diesel. And I did all the analyses where energy was coming from,
in particular, is a country that will benefit from
the efficiencies, etc., and I found that South Africa, in particular, would benefit from electric vehicles.
But the National Energy Council
Then I started further investigations into electric vehicles. But the National Energy Council didn't have a long life.
in 1992.
They were terminated, and the people that worked there were placed back in civil service
Being trained to be an
in
entrepreneur
1992. I was just finishing my master's degree in business leadership, being trained to be an entrepreneur at the time. So I didn't see my way open to join the government. I was more likely to start my own company.
As a transport sector consultant.
But then Eskom said, you were doing good work on electrical vehicles and we are quite curious about electric vehicles. Why don't you join us as a transport sector consultant and you can lead our program on electric vehicles?
The vehicles themselves, the
So I joined Eskom and it was quite an excellent journey. They gave me great freedom to do research on electric vehicles, the vehicles themselves, the batteries, and how you charge the batteries, all these kinds of things. And that was a very good learning experience for me. We converted a number of vehicles to electric drive so that we could get hands-on experience on the difficulty, on how you do it, what it involves. Can we start something like that in South Africa, in the industry, maybe? All these questions get asked. And what are the real benefits? So we did that in those years. When the oil price fell in 2002, Eskom said, why would anyone want to have an electric vehicle because the oil is so cheap? And they terminated the program. And then, of course, I left Eskom, trying to find something else to do. Then a friend of mine said, come and join an IT company with me. So I did that, but IT wasn't for me. So I went back into starting my own company, into energy consulting, and I started working with a different company. This contract then had a contract with SANEDI. SANEDI was the South African National Energy Research Institute, and so we did research for them on what happens with the transportation systems in Gauteng, for instance. If there were different options available or different pathways that people could use, not just roads or for cars, except for taxis, because taxis move more people than cars. Some people, of course, walk. So we were looking at other options like electric taxis or even a sky train. So that was very interesting. So we divided the Gauteng province into various little pockets. So we looked at the transportation of goods and also the transportation of people, and we looked at taking people to the different places of work. And that enabled us to calculate how long the morning commute would be, how much pollution would be caused, And they thought that was great, and they made me an offer and said that I should join them so that I could continue with the research on transportation, energy, and mobility. All these kind of interesting things that was a passion of mine. So I could again become involved. So I joined SUNEDI because I saw an opportunity to influence government with regards to changes in policy regarding transportation, but also to further my passion around the electric vehicles and see if we could get them into market. So I joined SUNEDI, and I was there until 2018, when I reached retirement age, and then I left SUNEDI because I couldn't continue working there, and I started consulting to people. I'm currently busy with a solar fridge that I'm building, a 48-volt fridge, because I do believe that there are many people in Africa that do not have fridges and they use ice, and we need to keep food and those things cool so that it doesn't go bad. So I would like to create that type of solution, because I believe these people, I mean, everybody can actually live in a 48-volt house. We don't need the big electricity supply that we have, especially if you lead a simple life without all the baggage that we typically carry around with us. But that's a different story altogether. I'm also looking at building sustainable cities. And in these cities, if you are powered by the sun, which I believe is entirely possible, the voltage that we would use there typically is 48 volt. Most of the solar installations, smaller ones for homes, use 48 volts. I've done that for my own home. I'm powered by the sun. At my own home, I drive an electrical car, and the car is also powered off the sun. So I can say I'm driving on sunshine. Well, that was quite an incredible overview, and it's very clear that you have an immense depth of experience and knowledge. And one of the thoughts that just came into my mind is that isn't it interesting how in the first half of our lives we almost gather the information that and the experience, and then in the second half of our life, which I see as, I see 50 as the half life. we should be most productive, and we should be able to implement all the knowledge and experience that we have gathered in the first half of life. And then this very strange concept of pension comes in the mix. I think that in your case, at least, it is a very helpful thing, because it is giving you the freedom now to pursue the things that you want to focus on. And certainly it is not a retirement for you, it's a repositioning. And I don't believe in pension at all. I think that it's dangerous for people's lives to think that they are no longer of use to society when a company says, now you've reached a certain age and now you can't continue working here. I find that really, really tragic, because especially my experience from having spent quite a bit of time in Germany and meeting people who are deep in the 80s and 90s, who are still very active, very sharp and on the go. And yes, they were also retired at an early age, but they did certainly not stop working. They then pursued their passions. And I think that is maybe the redeeming factor of having a pension, so that you are able to continue having an income while you pursue your passion. But I'm very excited to hear that you haven't stopped for a moment there, and that you have just kept on going in full power, and that is very exciting. Now, there are quite a few points that you mentioned that I want to just pick up on. The first one is around all this knowledge that you were working on in research, starting at Eskom, and then moving on to the organization that you worked with last. So, for instance, all that work that you did in terms of research, is it being used by anybody, or is it now just shelved? Is it accessible? Can anybody have access to it? Because, I mean, if I think that you did a whole exercise in terms of looking at Gauteng and Gauteng's transport solutions, is anyone having access to that information, or is it generally parked somewhere in an archive?
Look, what typically happens, I, I've been invited to talk at many platforms, many conferences, to many people, and this information has been shared openly. Um, the research reports are also available. Sometimes I guess they might be difficult to find because we don't keep paper like we did in the past. It seems to be gone out of fashion. But anyway, the information has been shared, and I still share the information with people. Currently, I'm fortunate to be involved in a consulting project regarding the Western Cape Province fleet, the GMT fleet. We are looking at developing a strategy for electrifying the fleet so that the total fleet can be electric vehicles instead of internal combustion engine vehicles.
That's exciting.
So we are using that information to apply it in the project that I'm busy working on today.
And so are you, so is the Western Cape planning to have those vehicles produced in South Africa?
Well, of course, that is one intention. Currently, we are not able to do that. And depending on what type of vehicle you talk about, it might not be that easy. The electric car, as we've seen what Tesla has done, they've done a tremendous job of turning the industry around, producing electric vehicles of tremendous high quality, and it's really advanced vehicles. I don't even think that the vehicle industry has reached that level of production yet, and the type of vehicle that Tesla is producing. But of course, you can build a simple vehicle. We have done that in South Africa. This was a project that we did in my Eskom days together with Nissan. We have produced a small utility vehicle that we exhibited as part of the Department of Trade and Industry's exhibition in Paris in 2002, just before Eskom pulled the plug on the project. So that can be done. Typically, people buy cars if it's a sedan type of vehicle, not because of techno-economic reasons, but because of aesthetic reasons. They might have, I mean, they like the looks or whatever the case may be. But if you, the color. But if you think about utility vehicles that should do a specific job, like a bakkie,
Yes.
a small delivery, you can build that locally. It's not that difficult. We have people that do have the skills in South Africa to do that. I believe we are a highly skilled people, and I also believe we are a highly innovative people because of the problems that we typically have. We need to find solutions to these problems almost all the time, just to be resilient and to carry on with our lives. We have to do that. So I do believe we can live up to that challenge and build our own vehicles in South Africa. We can even build our own batteries in South Africa. So this can be a totally local industry. I'm not talking about the high status, high luxury type of vehicles. I'm talking about the workhorses, the things that produce mobility and carry things.
I'm quite sure there will be some viewers whose ears will light up when they hear you talking. And so I just want to invite any viewer who is seeing this, who is in South Africa or in Africa, who is currently working on electric vehicles of any form, to please get hold of Carel. Because I really believe that we can do things, and we need to work together to make things happen. And we need to put our egos aside so that we can focus on the outcome and just get this done. Because if there is a province like the Western Cape province already, and they are looking at changing their fleet into electrical vehicles, then they need manufacturers, and ideally local ones, who can make that happen. And Elon from Tesla, it's time to just put a little bit of energy and thought, just 1 minute of your day, on the country that raised you. I know you fled it, but it's a very exciting place. So maybe it's time to just reconnect and let us use some of your technology to build some workhorse vehicles here in South Africa. Anyway, that's I just wanted to get that out into the world. Now, secondly, what I wanted to ask you is, about the electrical fridge. Why? And how far is this thing? When can we sell it?
Well, that's also what I'm trying to pursue, because there's not just a fridge stationary. It can be a fridge that is sitting on the back of a delivery vehicle, taking vaccines into the rural areas, or taking baby food into the rural areas, or delivering pharmaceuticals, or whatever it can be.
Amazing.
Can be integrated with a vehicle,
So how far
and
are
it's
you
not
with
very
this
expensive.
project? How far to market is it?
Well, we are still building the prototypes. We have had difficulty getting 48-volt compressors in South Africa. Nobody in South Africa had one, so we had to fly one in from China,
Okay.
which is not ideal. But this is happening as we speak. People are now working on this. Just after this conversation, I will be going to take a look at how far they are with the work. I've got an engineering company helping me to develop this. But the idea is that that should be integrated with the vehicle that we built together with Nissan in 2002.
Okay. Okay. So you are picking up on those pieces. That's fantastic.
Of course, I don't want what I've done go
Go
to
to
waste.
waste.
We've done a
Yes.
lot of work. We put a lot of
Absolutely.
thinking in that, and I want to make it happen. It'll be great to see this come to fruition.
Yes, that sounds fantastic. Well, I I am focused on creating opportunities for young people across Africa. And so I immediately see an opportunity for somebody to start selling fridges in their area. And um, I also know that, you know, a key aspect of the work that I do is on distribution and on delivery and on the logistics of all of that. And so we definitely have to keep in contact about this because I want to take your product to market.
That would be great.
So, so I think that that's one thing that was the second thing. And then the third thing is this whole thing around sustainable cities. Now, part of the Total Young Africa vision that I'm working on is really that I have come to the conclusion that our youth need support from elders. We are the elders. We have to create an environment in which our youth can fulfill their potential. And one of those things is that we need to make sure that we develop sustainable cities. For me, a sustainable city is made up of a whole bunch of sustainable villages, if I can call it that. But a village is not, for me, a village isn't necessarily a spread out thing. It can go up into the sky. So for me, seeing a mixed use building as a village of 10,000 people makes perfect sense. And I mean, we have 200 million young people aged 18 to 24 in Africa at the moment who are not fulfilling their potential. And if they get married, it means we have 100 million families that need housing in the next 5 years. And we need to,
It's a massive challenge.
so there's a huge opportunity there. And so, but we also can't expect the youth to do all that work. They don't have the skill or the experience yet. People who have the skill and the experience and people who have the capital need to take the lead in this in order to create these buildings or these spaces in which the youth can find work, run a franchise business, do something that can generate an income and while serving their fellow human beings in their neighborhood, and uh, and make it a very cost efficient, energy efficient village in a very modern, sustainable building. So that is so Young Africa City is for me a concept, and I know there are many different people working on this concept, and there are some efforts by some governments in Africa, including in South Africa, to start testing this. But it is too slow. And we need to start doing this now. So I'm so excited that you are also working on that. Do you have a team that you work on with this, or are you working on your own on the Sustainable City Solution project?
The Sustainable City project is really something I'm doing on my own. It started with the work that I was doing with electric vehicles. So if you look at mobility in a city, today's cities are mainly designed around the old mobility ways of doing things, the old transportation ways, the roads, the cars, the things that cause the problems today in modern cities or big cities. I mean, congestion is just a terrible problem. People are not getting anywhere, losing productive time, and poisoning the city with emissions that kill people. I mean, today in Beijing, 4,000 people will die prematurely because of vehicle exhaust emissions and other pollution. So, I mean, that's a figure of, I think, is about 7 million people a year in the world, and that's double the COVID pandemic deaths. And what do we do about that? Nothing. But we are hysterical about COVID. So, I mean, we don't have our priorities right.
That is
So,
a
so we
very
need to.
interesting statistic, I must say. And comparing it to COVID is also, I think, food for thought.
Well, you know, we have eyes, we have ears, but we don't apply them properly. We listen to things that we like. We don't like to hear bad things. But it's not about bad things. We need to be aware of what is happening around us. As you said, the housing problem and the without job, people having no jobs, no future, that is a massive problem. That should receive attention immediately. We cannot wait for people to die because of lack of food, lack of water, lack of housing, all these things that are basic needs that most of the people in the world do have. So it's just a massive problem. But that's what governments are there for. I mean, but it takes so long. People do studies, they analyze things, but they don't apply them.
This is why I set up the Young Africa system, because I believe that we are unfair towards our governments. We are expecting far too much from our governments. And in reality, we, the citizens, should make these things happen and not the government. We should not wait for government. In fact, I really believe that governments need to step a little bit out of the way and just create a bit more space for citizens to start doing what they can do best, and let regulation follow.
No, I agree with you, but governments tend to want to control everything. And yeah, there's some sense in that because you have to have standards and safe ways of doing things, but you should allow people and empower people and equip people so that they can help themselves because you cannot help them fast enough. And that is the main reason. And therefore, schooling is so important in Africa because typically a lot of people are still at low levels of education and it's difficult for them to get the education. Sometimes the education is too high priced. They cannot afford the education. I mean, this should be a no-brainer. Educate people for free until they go to university and then they can start paying for it because then it becomes more serious and you need to start to handle money because soon you'll be into a business environment where you need to handle money and understand money and these sort of things. But primary and secondary education should all be for free and should be compulsory as well.
Well, I think that you and I are going to have an argument about that because I see that governments are free education by governments isn't working. And as a result, I really think it's dangerous to send your child to a government school at the moment because it is. I think that governments struggle to manage implementation.
You're understanding me wrong.
Okay.
I'm not talking about schools the way they are. I'm talking about schools the way they should be, making information available to people and allowing people to study at their own speed. I'm not talking about traditional schools. I'm talking about people because they are curious.
Yes.
They should just be stimulated to learn on their own and at their own speed, but also be rewarded for what they learn. So maybe give them an incentive. Maybe tell people if you finish this course, I'm definitely going to give you a job, or I'm going to give you a grant. Just make sure that these things, and then you will see economies develop because that's really the economy that gives people jobs, not governments.
That is very true. I think that what I'd like to go back to the sustainable city work that you are working on. I have started working with a few people who are engineers and architects on the physical design of it, and I think the work that you are doing in terms of the energy side of it and the specialist work that you are doing in that respect needs to feed into the engineering and into the architectural side of things. I think this is one of the things where multidisciplinary teams are so important, because everybody has a piece. None of us can do it all alone. And so one of the reasons I started this show is to find like-minded people that are enthusiastic and that have knowledge and energy and understanding, and to start building teams all across Africa that can start building these cities or these buildings, these mixed-use developments. So what is it that you've been working on?
You can start with villages in Africa, in rural areas, because it's easier if you have a clean piece of paper, clean slate of paper. If you're talking about cities, there's so much rework that you have to do because they are totally wrong.
Yes, you're right.
I mean, the car kills people on the road, and the roads are pathways for people, not for cars. It's essentially people that you want to move, not cars. People and goods. It's not the car that you want to move. So you need to think about the modes and compare them with other ways of doing things. So, and we live three-dimensionally typically, but our transportation system is just two-dimensionally. Maybe we should create a third dimension, sky trains and things like that. I mean, there are so many opportunities and so many possibilities, but these typically do not get considered because people think it's too difficult or too expensive, or they just can't imagine them working. But it's possible to do that. So you can start in a village. You can start small and make sure that people are housed in the right places, have businesses in the right places, have all these sort of needs that people need to connect to close by, so they don't have to travel far. And the people in that area can provide these services for the people in that area. So you give people jobs in that specific area for the people in that area. So it's the people themselves that help themselves and provide services to each other. But they have to work together, of course. And that is something that is very difficult for people, because people tend to be sometimes very individualistic. And people are sort of, I want more than you've got, and that sort of thing. So the cooperation is not always there. And maybe, I don't know what it's going to take for people to come to the realization there will be more for each of us if we work together. I mean, that is just the state that we should be looking for.
Yeah, I mean, for me, really, if I think about the Young Africa, I call it Young Africa City because it really is what you would call an urban lifestyle. It's an urban lifestyle, but it is in one building. It's in a building let me call it a building complex, and where people really generally can walk everywhere, which I think is the first prize, so that everything you need for your daily life is within a few minutes of walk. And then you, of course, need to have the connections to bringing in the goods and the products that you need from the outside and exporting the things that you are producing from there. So you need the connecting transportation modes, and I'm all for the sky train, solar powered. I'm very excited about us making that happen in our remaining half of life, Carel. We have to get this done. So it's really exciting to be able to start connecting to people and just mobilizing energy. Uh, and of course, we will be working together with governments across Africa as well. But I really think, and this is again a message for all the viewers to this program, I really want to ask you to work with us, reach out, contact Carel or myself. Let's find ways of working together and making this happen. There is space for everybody. You know, there are different approaches to different things. One can test everything. It's really with the target audience, with a market of 200 million young people who need everything that we are producing and making and who will want to be part of this. We have enough of a business case to make everything and anything viable. So, Carel, in closing, I'm going to ask you, and this is really the reason why I started this channel, is I'm going to ask you, what is your vision for Africa?
Africa has got immense potential, and there are dangers as well facing Africa. Africa has got many resources. Africa has still got lots of space. Africa has got very interesting peoples. And I've traveled in Africa, and I tell you, it's wonderful people. But Africa has always been sort of left behind, and I don't know. I think Africa is going to pick itself up from its own bootstraps. Africa is not going to get help from other countries and other people to excel. We've seen that people come to Africa, take away from Africa. And so Africa has got to wake up. And I think it's happening. I think I've seen very good signs from this Uganda, Rwanda. I've seen this happening in other countries as well. And we should actually develop our own things here before people come and do it for us. When they start doing it for Africa, then Africa will have to pay a price for what they could have developed themselves. So we should jealously guard Africa and what Africa has on offer, so that the people of Africa can benefit from that, and not somebody from outside. That's really my wish for Africa, and I would love to help Africa do that.
That is wonderful. Thank you very much. I can see that our time is over. It always goes very quick with these interviews. Suddenly half an hour is over, and I know you have a video call waiting. So I'm going to say goodbye and say thank you for your time, and we'll talk offline.
Thank you for having me on your show. It was a pleasure.
Okay, have a good afternoon. Bye. Bye. Well, you heard what Carel had to say about all the amazing research that has happened in South Africa already regarding sustainable energy, regarding electrical vehicles, regarding the work he's doing on sustainable cities, and of course, the very interesting electrical workhorse vehicle that he has been working on. I just want to repeat the invitation to you. Reach out to me or to Carel if you want to start working together with us on making these things happen. If you are already working in that field, let's join forces and see how we can pool our resources to make this happen, either in South Africa or in another country in Africa. Let's work together to make this the African century. Let's take the lead in some things that Africa specifically needs, and see how we can also create innovations that the rest of the world can benefit from. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode.